Hey everyone, welcome to Jansi's Tech Stuff. This is Jansi with the voiceover I promised. Sorry for the delay, but I couldn't get to it any sooner. Before we get started, a quick heads up. If you're into custom Lego creations combined with 3D printing and microcontrollers like this one, check out my other channel Jansi's Custom Bricks and hit that follow. Of course, I'd be stoked if you subscribe here too, while we have a closer look at the Snapmaker U1. I tweaked this printer so it fits inside a 50 cm wide IKEA PAX cabinet, no drilling required, and the pre-feeders remain functional. Be sure to print all the components before you disassemble the printer, especially if this is your only one. Grab the 3MF file for Orca Slicer to print with the Snapmaker, or the Bamboo one if you have a Bamboo printer. Alright, let's get started. First, we turn the printer on the side where pre-feeders run into are mounted. There, we remove the PTFE tubes. I use needle nose pliers to help with this. The pre-feeders themselves have a locking tab on the one side of the white half, which needs to be pressed in to remove them. Here it is on the bottom side. To avoid damaging the ribbon cable, grip it flat and carefully unplug it. Set the feeder aside for now. Next, we remove the filament spool holders. These are also secured with locking tabs deep inside the housing. To release them, they need to be pushed horizontally with some force until you hear a loud click. Now we repeat these steps on the other side. Remove the feeder, the ribbon cable and the filament spool holders. Next, we need the included tool, or better yet a small cordless screwdriver with a matching bit. We use it to remove the screws sitting in the recesses of the filament attachment points. If the printhead is in the way, simply push it gently to the back. Inside the printer chamber, there are also two screws on each side that need to be removed. After that, the PTFE tube and USB cable guides need to be removed. To do so, we need to unscrew 2 screws per head. Now carefully pull out the guides together with the USB-C connectors. The 4 corners are covered by silicone caps. Lift these off to unscrew the 4 screws underneath. The frame cover can now be released and hung down over the back. The side panels are separated at this point. This means there are only these 4 screws that matter per side. The frame cover can now be loosely placed back on for now. To remove the side panels, they first need to be unclipped at the top and then pulled upwards. Be careful with the cable and feed it through the opening. The filament sensors are also mounted on the back of the side panel, so be careful here too, and unplug the connectors from the board. Now we flip the device and repeat the same steps on the other side. Put the cable through the opening and unplug the filament sensors. Now we reroute the cable on the first side. Currently the cable is routed along here. It's relatively long, it goes up here, forms a loop and then comes back down. There's a glued-in clip here that holds the cable in place. Open it to gain some extra cable length. Pull the cable out, but make sure it's not in the way anywhere. Now it's long enough to comfortably route the feeder to the back. It's important that the cable doesn't stay too loose inside the housing. Otherwise it can happen that the heat bed mechanism catches the cable and tears it off. From my perspective, it's sufficient to just lay the cable in like this. Once it's secured by the adapter later on, it won't move anymore. That's basically all we want to do on both sides. So we can go ahead and reinstall the corresponding panel now. Now we reconnect the filament sensors. Actually, you could just remove them entirely, as they are useless in this modification. Feed the ribbon cable back through the opening, making sure it's not twisted. When reinstalling the panel, carefully pull it taut. The panel is back on and the cable is long enough. We hang the frame cover to the back again and install the 4 screws for the top of the panel. Now we flip the printer to the other side again. This is a bit more tricky here, as both the mainboard and the power supply are installed on this side. First, we need to remove the power supply's cover, otherwise the cable won't be accessible. It's held by 4 screws. Be careful, there's a fan attached on the back. Here we have another of those plastic clips holding the cable. We open it up and put the cable out. As you can see, the extra length gained on this side is unfortunately not enough. So first we take the cable out of the channel and screw the power supply cover back on. You will notice a hard cut here, as I had to make a correction at this point. I had initially glued the cable to the cover so it ran horizontally from the mainboard in a loose loop towards the back. What I hadn't noticed was that the recess of the lower filament spool holder is quite large and pushes the cable into the path of the heat bed mechanism. I almost tore the cable or the board, but luckily the printer detects an anomaly when there is an unusual power spike. To get enough cable length, I took it out of the channel and zip tied it on the top of the other cables in there. The cable is no longer routed at a sharp 90-degree angle, but at a larger radius. It now sits here under these tabs, and once zip tied it stays in position. In the next step we feed the ribbon cable back through the opening, making sure it's not twisted. Then we reconnect the filament sensors. Now we carefully pull the ribbon cable taut before placing the side panel back in the guide. About 15 cm should be sticking out. It's secured again from the top with the 4 corresponding counter-strung screws. Then the frame cover is placed back on from the top. Make sure the filament and USB-C guides are not in the way so nothing gets jammed. Then they can be plugged back in and screwed back into place. Now the screws for the cover itself. Then the ones for the filament holder holes. And finally the 4 for the print chamber. The most complex part is done and we can now turn our attention to the feeder adapters. We have the feeder holders and the adapters for left and right. This dovetail guide needs to face upward with the retaining tabs pointing backward. Here you can see the cable coming out. This is the one we need. Here's the recess for the cable. The part goes in like this and then hooks in. That means the cable runs between this and that groove. Pull the cable slightly taut and press the adapter into the openings. Sometimes you need a bit more pressure. Then pull it backward to hook it in. Just like it was originally done with the feeders. That means it could theoretically slip out toward the front, since the tabs only hold it from the back, even though it sits fairly stable. So we grab the matching feeder holder, in this case the one with 1 and 2. It also has a recess in the curve here, so the cable has room to slide through during installation. Now we take this cable and feed it through the opening into the feeder holder. Pull it carefully taut and slide the holder onto the guide. Through this curve, everything is now held in place by form fit. It can no longer move forward or backward and is secure. Now grab the matching feeder or either one of the two. Since they are identical, it doesn't really matter if you swap them. The shape of the recess here matches the shape of the feeder exactly. Before sliding it in, we connect the cable properly first. Make sure the cable doesn't get pinched under the feeder. You can then tuck the cable as a loop behind it. The tubes here still need to be trimmed, or you can connect them at full length if you don't plan to place a printer in a cabinet. But if you do, they will get pinched by the back panel without trimming. So in my case they will be cut shorter. But more on that later. First, let's complete the second side. Insert the adapter and pull it backward. On this side as well, first feed the ribbon cable into the feeder holder. Keep it as taut as possible on this side while sliding it onto the guides. The cable has less room here as the housing is shaped differently at this point due to the connectors. Plug in the connector properly. Then pull the cable slightly taut again and slide the feeder in. Now just tuck the cable as a loop. The roll construction is already fairly stable. But to give it a bit more rigidity, I designed a connector piece that can be slid onto the dove guides here. Next we will take care of trimming the PTFE tubes. Cut them to length so they are neither too taut nor running into a large radius. Also keep in mind that each tube still needs to insert about 10 mm into the feeder. Also make sure you use the correct port for each print head. They are numbered from right to left when viewed from the back. So all the way on the right is number 1 and all the way on the left is number 4. To make sure the cut angles are 90 degrees, I used a small tube cutting tool. At first I had some concerns that the different tube length might cause problems, but this turned out to be a non-issue. That said, the differences shouldn't get too large. By trimming the tubes, the extraction lengths are now of course too long. To adjust these, I used the packs to have custom firmware from GitHub. However, I am now firmly confident that it also worked without it, but I haven't tested it. If anyone can confirm this, feel free to leave a comment. We will now look at how to install the firmware and then adjust the extrusion length. Here we have the GitHub page of Pax12, or rather his page for the Snapmaker U1 extended firmware. You can find a link in the video description. On the right side you can see releases. The link takes us to the download section. Here all changes and bug fixes are listed. Scroll down to Assets, download the latest release of U1 Extended and save it to a USB drive formatted as FAT32. I already had an older update installed on the Snapmaker with the file still sitting on the USB drive. The new file can simply be added alongside it, since the Snapmaker menu lets you select a specific file. Here is a lovely machine. Don't be surprised, I filmed this part after when the printer was already installed. The USB drive is already connected to the printer. I added a USB extension cable during installation, so accessing it later won't be a problem. Navigate through settings to About, then Firmware and Local Update. In the file picker, select the corresponding file and confirm. Under no circumstances interrupt the power supply during the upgrade. The printer has restarted after successfully installing the upgrade and is now running on the extended firmware. To be able to change the printer's configuration, we need the IP address, which can be found under Settings, LAN mode, provided LAN mode is enabled. If not, you can also find the IP address at the Wi-Fi menu. Here we are back on the GitHub page, but now we want to access the Clipper front end of the Snapmaker. To do this, we enter the IP address of the printer in the browser's address bar. We land on Fluid, the installed user interface. On the left in the menu there is an entry for the configuration, represented by curly braces. In the configuration you will find a folder called Extended. Inside that, a folder called Clipper. In this folder I created a file called feeders.cfg. In this file I added two parameters, filament feed left and filament feed right. In the original config file they are set to 950 mm. I limited the feed length to 800 mm, which works well for me. The printer is unfortunately a bit wider than the recess of the pull-out shelf I want to place it on. So I filled the gap with 18mm thick shelf boards. I printed small plates so the printer can be placed on them and won't move around. In the footage you will see that they are evenly spaced, mounted at equal distances from the edge. Later I found out that the door hinges are slightly in the way, so they should be placed about 5mm further away from the door, meaning for a right hinge door 5mm further to the left and for a left hinge door 5mm further to the right. Now we place a printer on the pull-out shelf. I got 4 1 meter long PTFE tubes which I plan to connect to my Cheeto dryer later. We attach one to each of the feeder connectors. At first I wanted to route them behind the shelf since there's actually enough space toward the back panel, but it later turned out that it works better to drill holes for them. If you want to do this, make sure not to place the holes directly below the feeders, but slightly further inward, otherwise the rail guides will be in the way. Okay, now it's time to put the printer into the cabinet. The whole thing worked out much better than expected. Just make sure to route the tubes through holes in the shelf, as I mentioned earlier, not the way I attempted in the video. If you place the shelf on the rails at the back first and lift the front up slightly, it can easily be slid toward the back. Since I had to install and remove the whole thing multiple times until I was happy with it, I found that it is not strictly necessary to remove the door. Here you can see the printer in its installed state. This is a Snapmaker and below it a slightly modified Cheeto filament dryer. Both devices are connected through this power strip. Here's a small life hack. These red parts are Lego hole beams. With a spacing of 5, they fit perfectly into the IKEA PAX cabinet hole spacing. This makes them great for building small cable guides. The power strip is also mounted with hole beams here, so it can easily be repositioned if needed. But that's just for a side note. The filament feed-throughs can be seen here. Well, somewhat. Anyway, they go through the upper pull-out shelf. If you pull out both drawers at the same time, you can also read the power switch by reaching underneath, for example. The printer is fairly heavy. The drawer can handle the weight, but the whole thing is very top heavy, so it should always be supported when pulling it out. I also added a switch to the power plug to make turning it on and off easier. So well, this is how everything turned out. I'm quite happy with it. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think. I will also upload a tutorial for the display mode of the Cheeto. You can install it in the cabinet in its original state, but its usability is rather uncomfortable that way. So here we are again. If you actually made it this far, you have maybe already modded your printer or are planning to do so in the future. Feel free to let me know what you liked, what I can improve, or if this helped you out. If you have any questions, you can also leave them as a comment. You have probably noticed, but I'm not a native speaker, so please go easy on me. Thanks for watching and until next time. Bye.